Right. Good morning. Morning, Des. How you doing? Oh, morning, Graham. Only feels like 2 minutes since I was last on here. Hi, Scott. Excellent. Everybody's here. Well, all three. Where does the time go? I don't know. It feels particularly quick because I pretty much went to bed after the stream last night. But it was really good last night. I really enjoyed it. It was nice to do. Like, I don't really ever get much of a chance to really get into the evening vibes of a chill out studio session. But it was really good, especially the end, you know. It was really good. And it was also good to work a bit on that tune as well. I know. Yeah, it just seems like 2 hours. But I'm keen at the minute. I'm on a bit of a mission. In fact, we're on a big mission. So, like, if you think, like, I've got the messy list here. Where are we? We're here, and there's all of this to go. So what are we on? Number 5, number 6, and there's another 18, about another 20 different things to talk about, potentially. I might condense some of it together. Oh, Enzo's here. Hi, Enzo. Right. Need to think. Wake up. This is the challenge. All right. So the first thing really is and so you've had an eventful day. I hope it's been good. Right. Did some cool things happen? I hope so. Right. So today we're talking about environment and habits, and actually I was trying to work out which one. If you have to, like, which one comes first, right? And I think the one that I put environment and then habits, because it's like, how can you? I was discussing this with my other half, and it was right. Well, which one would come first? All right. All right. Yeah, you're fine. If you can stay an hour, you're going to catch most of it. Enzo. So you'll be fine. Yeah. So we're talking about environment and habits, or habits environment, but, which one could go first? I mean, they both could certainly happen at the same time. But from a coaching point of view, I suppose that when people procrastinate like myself, I would have a period of, need to sort the studio out. The studio was fine, by the way. Need to sort the studio out. I'm going to take everything down and I'm going to rewire it. So I would take everything apart, take all the wires, hoover underneath the table, clean everything, put it all back. It would be lovely and shiny. And then go, right, when I get all of this done, then I'll be able to focus on music. Suddenly, some magic will happen, and the focus, creative super fairy will appear cast a magic spell on me, and I'll make the best music I've ever made. And that never happened. And I used to mess about. I used to wire all my studio in, clean it all up, then go on to then launch, well, it would have been Logic at the time, launch Logic, and then proceed to update any plugins that I needed, and then just mindlessly mess about and do absolutely nothing. That's what would happen. And I suppose that was me sorting the environment out. But I distinctly remember when getting my act together, as I talked about before, was making a commitment to myself, really, and saying, you know, I need to do something. And the first thing that was really drilled into me was, in order to do anything, it's about practice. And in order to practice, there has to be regular sessions. You have to build a habit. All right. So, building a habit. Yes. Here we go. I think habits are probably the first thing that we need to really focus on. So, from a coaching point of view, when I detect that somebody hasn't got or is trying and struggling to dial in a regular music making session, this is something where I can help. So what we have is the minimum viable commitment. Oh, hello, thanks for subscribing. There's Kevin, he's subscribed. Thank you, Kevin. We have a minimum viable commitment, MVC. It's also an MVS, which is a minimum viable studio time. But we'll just say minimum viable commitment for now. And that is, how much time can you dedicate to your music session? Right, well, there's Kevin. So Kevin's got, very sensibly, 5 minutes. Now, I'm sure Kevin won't mind, but Kevin is, I've coached Kevin for a little while now. And, I mean, he's releasing music and, you know, living the dream. So the 5 minutes minimum viable commitment time. So the way that you think about this minimum viable commitment is how much time can you dedicate every day to music as if your life depended on it, and you've got to do a music session every day as if you don't do it, you would die, right? I mean, obviously that's not the truth, but, you know, imagine it's keeping you alive. So you're going to make sure you do a music session, aren't you? Now, there's no particular time length that you can have, you just choose. And when I ask people, like, okay, how much time can you dedicate to making music? Usually, suddenly they'll go, oh, an hour. It's always, I don't think I've ever known anybody say, oh, a minute or a lower number. It's usually in the, you know, an hour or 2 hours, all right? Which is always like really strange, because usually they've been struggling to find time to make music, you know, but potentially there's all this time appears, you know. So I'm like, oh really? Okay, well, if you can do an hour, we'll run with an hour. Now, I went through this is exactly what I said to my coach, right, when asked this, and it, you know, and I was like, oh, I can do like a couple of hours a day, and technically I could, right, because I had it all worked out and I had multiple sessions, right. And it was like, really? So every day you can do 2 hours forever. And sure enough, I mean, that week, it wasn't 2 hours at all. I was missing sessions. Sessions couldn't be the length of time I wanted. You know, and this is the thing, is because, like, life throws unexpected things in our way, you know, and it knocks us sideways. So for minimum viable commitment, 2 hours for me was just like totally different, totally unrealistic. And then it dropped down. I can't remember now, but I think I dropped it down to half an hour, and then it went down to 15 minutes in the end. And I've been, my lowest has been 15 minutes. 5 minutes, the same as Kevin. And you're probably thinking, well, 5 minutes of minimum viable commitment to music, there is absolutely no time to do anything in 5 minutes. Well, this is the whole thing. If you think you can do something in 5 minutes, you're going to get ready to do 5 minutes. And this is sort of linking in with the environment, isn't it? Right, Des. Yeah, so... Kevin, amen. And yes, Kevin has tornadoes and floods, and I was very concerned about that and said, Kevin, can you just nip out and record the tornado sound so I can use it in a piece of music? No. Which he did. He did have a recording of it before I even asked. Instinct kicked in, and Kevin just like, right, I know there's a tornado, but I better record it first before we run. So always on the case of music. There's a flood, save yourselves. There's a tornado. Right, great. Where's the recorder? I'll just get this first. Right, I can run now. Right, so... Des, people waste time watching crap on TV and claim they have no time to do things like practice sport. My students say it all the time. Oh my God, yes. Isn't it ridiculous? It's like, do you have any do you teach any teenagers, Des? That's the one. Playing computer games. It's ridiculous. It's just your life's like great. It's like, you know, I mean, I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man here, but you know, you got to have some entertainment. But honestly, it's like draining your life. I mentioned Big Brother earlier. Yeah. All right. Is this much better? Oh, because you're on YouTube. All right. Excellent, Kevin. So, we've got the minimum viable commitment, which is, you know, in Kevin's example and my example, I missed sessions and the 5 minutes had to go really, really low. And then you're thinking, well, what is the point? I can't do any music in 5 minutes. Well, of course, you can do lots of music in 5 minutes. There's always... Yes, I'm talking about coaching, yeah. So, you've got your 5 minutes, and what you have to do is you have to start kind of gearing towards that 5 minutes, and this is where we start, you know, getting into a bit of environment, so it becomes entwined, you know. So I suppose like one of the things environmentally with me, a lot of things went on in conjunction with this habits, right? So initially I just needed to leave the studio environment that I had. So I've talked about it before, the table with lots of stuff on it, really cool gear, everything you'd want to make a piece of music that I wasn't using and was a complete distraction. Not really making any massive amounts of music, and when I was totally struggling, needing like hours and hours and hours before I would even entertain the idea of doing it, or there was no point. So 5 minutes was just like nuts, you know, to me. But anyway, what you start doing is you start gearing your environment. So what I said previously, when I first for focus, I think it was, you know, I told everybody the story about me basically just taking a laptop upstairs to the living room and looking out the window early in the morning when it was dark, and you know, starting to make music that way. And that was my environment, because I was in a totally different environment. I was in an environment that I was away from all of the other distractions, you know, musical instruments and things like that I had around me. I was away from the environment that technically I was failing in. And I was in this new, cleaner, creative space for now, just with a laptop. But honestly, how long does it take to open the laptop and switch it on? You know, not very long. So 5 minutes is doable. And if you're running a machine, like I do, I'll get the machine up, it starts making a lot of sense. So, you know, I used to just take my laptop to work with me. Like, lunchtimes, I'd take it when, take my daughter about for her, like, activities. So, like, all of her education stuff, going to the dance school, you know, ballet school, music lessons. So I would do all of that kind of running about. And there's another environment. So, because, like, then I was very, very busy with the daughter, taking her to activities. I never used to take I couldn't take my studio with me. So even in the time that I had free, I would have to do all this other stuff as a parent, and I would sit with all the other parents looking at my phone, you know. And honestly, it didn't occur to me, right, that I could be using that time. How slow off the mark am I, that I could have been using that time. Oh, this is Trello. This is Trello here, Enzo. It never really occurred to me that I could be using that environment as well. The environment where we're all sitting in a waiting room, or I'm sitting in waiting for a coffee, getting a coffee in Starbucks, waiting for an activity that I'd take my daughter on to finish. You know, all of this time suddenly appeared that I could use. So it made a lot of sense to get some sort of environment that was portable, that I could move about. But come back to that, the 5 minute thing. So when you start running a machine, you know, I can get, well, Devil was my friend because that was last night. So I've got like all of these little jobs here. How many of these could I do in 5 minutes? You know, I can open the laptop, remove the years. Remove years, I could do that. I could probably do remove years. Waiting 1 minute 40 for my iPad to load a game. Okay. Yeah. Panning vocals. Could I do that in 5 minutes? There's two things I could do in 5 minutes. Remove 16th hi-hats from chorus. Remove years. Maybe add a breakbeat. So those are a few things that, you know, and you could, you know, you can get really sort of into the details of this. What you can do is you can start putting times next to these things. So if you've got 5 minutes, you can set a timer and try and beat the clock, and you really get into flow. So actually that 5 minutes, you can get a lot of work, and it's a step forward. You know, and if there's multiple 5 minutes in your day, you can really start making a difference in your music. Obviously, recording 2 solos you couldn't do, but you could do potentially 5 minutes would be a great amount of time to try and do a speed mix. So open your laptop, bang, 5 minutes from that point, you could do a speed mix and try and beat the clock. Beating the clock is a brilliant thing to do because it gets you into flow. Like one of the conditions in flow is the time dilation, but it's also the skill to challenge ratio, and it's also the I suppose the other thing that gets you in flow is consequences. So there's this kind of consequence of trying to complete the task before the time runs out. And I used to say to myself, you know, this task has to be done. I can't go back to it. It has to be done in 5 minutes, as if the world ended, right? That would be the only time left to do music in. So I play a lot of these sort of mind tricks with myself to get me to work faster and harder and quicker, and to really get into that speed mindset and try and ignore quality and trust your instincts more. You know, our brains are amazing things as humans. You know, we're capable of humans are capable of like absolutely incredible stuff, and being able to do, complicated music tasks in 5 minutes is one of them. So 5 minutes, we've always got 5 minutes, and there is no shame in having a 5 minute minimum viable commitment. You can always put it up. And I think mine's still 5 minutes, to be fair. So we've got a minimum viable commitment, but the problem is, and we have sort of got an environment. I had a portable environment that was the minimum environment I could have. Headphone, and a really good one actually, headphones and a laptop, and I could go anywhere. And any of the sort of available time I had through the day, I could just get in the habit of opening the laptop and doing something. But one of the things is we haven't really got a particular fixed time. So fixing a time is important. So I'm going to have to flick backwards and forwards between the habits and environment thing, but we seem to be squarely on the habits at the minute. And I think the habits is the important thing, is the most important thing. So if you're kind of in that chaotic phase that I was, where you're procrastinating, you're angry about the fact that you can't be consistent with your music and all that kind of stuff, right? Then making a minimum viable commitment, and then actually just trying to find a regular time in the day to make music. All right. Now, we need to make a habit, and habits are really important, because in order to do our music making, we want to be able to just turn up automatically and have no resistance towards it and just start doing it. Okay. I mean, like now, because with these streams, I just get up and do it. I'm like, it's all automatic. I'm just, out of bed at 6, switch all the lights on, switch the computer on. There's a whole, and I kind of and it's a habit. I actually get out of bed, and it's like I go round in a circle like this, round the room, switching everything on. Switching the heater on, switching the back light on, switching the front lights on, switching the computer, and that's what I do. And then I do a loop, and I go off there about another 10 feet over at the corner of the room. I get dressed, and then I go up, and then I brush my teeth and all that kind of stuff. Haven't washed my hair, so I've used dry shampoo for now, so I'm a little bit presentable. Make the coffee while the kettle's boiling. I come down here and start the live, go back up, make the coffee, come down. And this is like a habit. It's like that's actually like a little ritual I do. And this is the trigger. Waking up and doing that, it's the trigger into doing the thing that I'm doing, which is my morning session, really, which at the minute I'm practicing talking and just getting everything out of my head and into some sort of format on YouTube, so other people, if they're happy to listen to my rantings, can listen to and go back to. And I'm trying to label things. So if you want to find anything and listen to it in your own time, then you can do that. So that's all the trigger with me, and I have a time. Now, with the habit, to make a habit, it needs to be the same time every day. But also importantly, it needs a trigger. A habit needs a trigger. So it needs something that happens before the thing that you're going to do to trigger your brain into knowing that that's what it is. So for me, alarm rings, and for music, it's when I wake up. Because waking up is something I do for now every day. Okay, so as soon as I wake up, that's the time that I'm going to do music. And bearing in mind, okay, it's 5 minutes, isn't it? Hi Sean, how you doing? Good to have you on the stream. We're talking about habits and environment. So the trigger for me is to get up, okay? I mean, if you weren't, I think, all right, and I'll just say, I think everybody should do music first thing in the morning, okay? Because if you do the thing that you love doing in your own time, And in the morning time, and you get up early before everybody else, it's a magical, as I've said before, it's a magical time. And that time really, really feels like it's your time. But if you're not into that and you want to, like, you're just like, oh, I need to be asleep, and then just do whatever. I mean, the other thing about doing your music thing in the morning, though, is you've done what you want to do. You've done the heavy lift, and you can get on with your rest of your day, and you're just more nicer and open to everybody else because you've done your thing. You're not fighting through the day trying to preserve whatever tension span is left in the hopes to do music when you get back in. Having said that, you could pick other times. So other triggers could be when you come in from work. Okay, that could be a trigger. But preferably you want to have a trigger that you definitely do every day. So not every day you go to work, but certainly that would do you for 5 days. It could be after you have your food. So after you have your evening meal. Once that's done, then that triggers you to go to the music and, triggers you to go to the studio or whatever and do the activity that you've got planned. So, in short, you're looking for a trigger for the habit. That's the thing. And when the trigger happens, it's automatic to the habit. It's just like going to the gym, isn't it? You go to work, finish work, you go to the gym. Not that I go to the gym, but if I was to go to the gym, maybe after work or in the morning. I always planned on last thing. It worked out less over time. So, and then what you can do is once you've finished your musical activity, whether it's your minimum viable commitment or whatever, then give yourself some sort of reward, and it could be just simple like a cup of coffee or something like that. Yeah. And that triggers and then that's the end of the cycle. And then what we're doing is we're building that into a habit, which I think is about 14 days for me. So what I had to do was I remember starting this and doing a minimum viable commitment, for 14 days. So if you're down to 5 minutes, it just means you do 5 minutes. And then when 5 minutes ends, that can be the end of your session. You don't have to do any more. But inevitably what happens is you're in flow and you can just off you go. And I would just make music till basically that time left. So I would say consistently in flow, I would get an hour and a half, up to an hour and a half in one go. And also, when I talked about it, flow can be chained together. So just when you come out of flow after half an hour, or an hour and a half, you can have a 5-minute breather and then you can get back into it. And you can probably get another hour or so out of yourself if you wanted, once you know about flow being chained. Because we know it's not like this magical thing. It's something that we can make happen. We can induce it through, using time, by having the correct skill to challenge ratio, by having consequences. Now, the other part of the habits thing, right, is, when you fully made your habit, your minimum viable commitment's up to half an hour. That's what mine doesn't really go. Mine doesn't go higher than half an hour, believe it or not. You've got your minimum viable commitment. You're consistently, doing all of those sessions. But as I was saying, like, even when you're up in the morning, right, you might miss a morning. You might, we're ever changing, aren't we? Like, things can happen and you fall off. Like, I've had live sessions, where I haven't been consistent, or I've been ill, or other things have happened and I've missed a few and then come back, and then it becomes difficult. So what you got to understand about habits is habits are, they are quite brittle. Okay. So, we can rely at some point on that, but then we have to reinforce them. And I remember in one of the coach training sessions I was at a few months back, we were talking about this. And we can reinforce habits. And this is where it gets really, really powerful. Okay. So you've got, let's just get this right in my head. So, oh, you know what I might do? I might get a little whiteboard thing. That would be good that I could write on. Yeah, do that. I wonder what I need to do that. I need a pen and I need a tablet. So I use a Mac. Has anybody got any recommendations? And then I would need the software where I could just launch something and then I could just have like a little whiteboard, like a teacher, but not a teacher because I'm a coach. That would be brilliant. And then I could write on it. This is the thing. So we've got our habits, right? I'm just doing a mind map for ourselves. And we're going to reinforce these habits with a couple of things. Right. So the first thing, all right, which is, I suppose the lighter of the two options in a way, is to reinforce your habit is you need some sort of a consequence, right? That has to happen if you don't do one of your sessions. If you miss a session or you miss a deadline, or in fact, actually, deadlines. Okay? And accountability. That's what you need. So by setting deadlines, like I will have a track done in a week or in 2 weeks, is really, really important because that'll get you turning up for your habits. Because as a consequence, I suppose, a sweet jar, yeah, you could have a sweet jar. That could be, you could reward yourself with a sweet after your session ends, or, yeah. So you could do that, or play a computer game or whatever you fancy doing. So you can reinforce your habit with a deadline. So deadlines are great. I'm going to have a release scheduled and done once a week. Okay. I'm going to do, so I've done that before, like the release a week sort of thing. You could, release every fortnight or release every month. I remember that's how I actually worked. My deadlines were really early on. So luckily for me, when I dialed this in, the first sort of like coaching program I did, very soon I'd kind of worked a style out, and I got, because of the Karen Harding thing and her ending up being in the 7 in the UK charts, I think was the highest she got to with M&EK. Because I had that little thing to talk about and I got a decent publisher, then suddenly I held myself, and I mean, they probably weren't bothered if ever I handed in music or not. They would just go to the next artist, It wasn't like I was the only one that existed in the world. But in my head, I thought, I'm going to do a good job for these publishers. And what I'm going to do is every week, I'm going to finish one piece of music. I'm going to finish it. So I don't need anything doing to it. I'm going to finish 100% all my stuff, mixed and mastered, and I'm going to send them one track a week. And sure enough, that's what I did. Every week, that was my deadline, and it had to be handed in on the Monday morning. So I'd have my habit, getting up every morning, and I was doing some Saturday and Sunday mornings for ages back then as well. And I was using, because I was so hyper-focused on this, I was using all of the other available times, to do what it was I'm doing. So a deadline was really, really important. And a lot of the times we aren't really aware of all of our available time as well. And with regarding the minimum viable commitment and creating a habit, one of the exercises I did, and I highly recommend everybody to do this, is I audited all of my time. I literally went through the minute I wake up and I wrote down every single thing I did, right? And all the things I did in the week, and I did this for a full week, right? And what I did is I just identified patterns of like time that I had where I was just messing about, doing nothing, dead time, the stuff like take my daughter. So once I highly recommend writing all of your times down. All right. And then and then what I did is I just had two kind of columns, and I wrote down everything that I did in the week that was a time multiplier. So, in other words, things that actually helped me make music and did things that were positive. And then I had time dividers, which were the negative things that I did that took time away. So things like drinking, television, just all that kind of stuff. So what I did is I found that there was a lot of time dividers in there, and I borrowed that time to make music in. And suddenly what I realized by writing everything down and auditing my time, that I had absolutely tons of time to do music in, and I was able to get that time and use it. I had the deadline at the end of the week, so that was really getting me focused. Now, obviously, I wasn't doing lives at that time, and that's what really trained me to consistently do music. So a deadline reinforces a habit, a regular deadline. If you're not doing the live streaming thing or anything like that, and you're just kind of making music, the other thing you can do is you can, with the deadline, you can have some sort of accountability. So you could hold somebody, you could find somebody who is your accountability person, and so if you don't do it, you have to tell them that you didn't do it. I know that some people will say, right, if I miss a deadline, I'll give away $200 to a charity, that kind of thing. And I think there's a website where you can do that. I haven't done that one, but I know that one, a few people who do that, that if they miss a deadline, then they'll donate some money to a charity or something like that. So having an accountability is a good one. Being accountable to, like, the thing is, when you come onto a coaching program like mine, there is a certain level of accountability, because you know that you're going to turn up every week, and I'm going to ask you, what were your wins? Like, the first thing I ask everybody in the group is I go through everybody's wins. I want to hear what the problems are, but more to do with the number one problem they had with that week, and then we do opportunities. So you're going to be asked, and I'm going to ask you, like, what went on, and then if there's a problem there and you didn't do sessions, then I'm going to go through it with you. So there is that accountability that I will hold people to. Like a swear jar, yeah. Like a swear jar. And so, yeah, you could get spanked if you don't do the work, obviously. But some people might want that to happen. Anyway, just something that would, like, that you wouldn't want to happen, really, to happen if you don't do your session, basically. So we've got the habit, we're reinforcing it with a deadline, and we have creating an event. So eventually, in my long career, because I trundled along like this for years and years, having a great time in the studio. Sorry. I had a great time getting up every morning, writing tons of music, releasing it. I had my publisher, and then I had a few years of... then what happened is, when you start releasing music, then other people start getting interested, and that adds more accountability to it. So when you're releasing music and you're getting publishers involved and, like, other professionals, Des likes to spank me. I like to spank me, Julie. Yeah, that could be a reward for Des, maybe, at the end of his music session. Right. So, what was I saying? Oh, I was just thinking about spanking me, Julie. Ali G was great, wasn't he? Yeah. Oh, what was I saying? Distracted. Oh, don't you hate it when that happens? Oh yeah, I was going to talk about events. So I had accountability. I had my publisher, okay, doing one song there. Then what happened is, obviously you get used to that, and then you're doing that for a while and it becomes very samey. And then I ended up managed by Two Dutch, a wonderful dance label, promoter, and artists actually. They're just wonderful people, and I had them. I was with them for a couple of years as well. So there's accountability there. There was real accountability there, and then I had to have these releases out. I had to be pushing my career forward, and it was like everything was like in my head full on. Because there's this, that's what I was wanting to do. I was wanting to do these releases, and I wanted to really make a name for myself. I wanted to chart and all that kind of stuff, and they helped me. So I was also, there was accountability there. I had to do things. Accountability from being coached by Mike, because he would ask me why I haven't done something. So, to avoid all of that, I just did the work, basically. And I don't like to say work, but I enjoyed having a really great time doing music. That's really all that happened. We just build these stories in our head that because it's art and stuff, that it's going to be hard and difficult, and there's this misconception that we have to be a tortured artist. Actually, Rick Rubin, in his book, was talking about that, and that's just not true. You don't have to be tortured and sad and depressed to make work. You can be happy and just do it. It's perfectly fine. It is work. It's just not bad work. Yeah, fair enough. So the other thing, eventually that starts wearing out, and then I do the McLaughlin and Hutch thing, and then there's accountability between me and Thomas to do things, so that's firing up, and then that gets to a point, and then we're doing other things, all right? And I'm still making music, and then I'm like thinking, right, well, I've kind of made quite a lot of connections with music now in the world. What else can I do? And then what was looming was the whole doing the live stream, what I'm doing now, and I didn't really know much. Just I would do something that may lead to some sort of coaching business potentially. But either way, what I wanted to do was, I initially, at the first stage of this, I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to allow people to just watch me in the studio, a bit like what Dead Mouse was doing, so I didn't really have to fully engage with people, but I could show them stuff. But what fundamentally that did is, when my habits were waning and I was getting tired of myself, is that brought accountability to the everyday. Which was great, and that's really kept me going. So he set a schedule. I'm going to get up every morning, 5 o'clock, 5:15. Or 5:30. I'm going to stream, and you can all watch me in the studio. So I reinforced the habit with an event. So we've got our habit. We've got the reinforcing it with a deadline, accountability. We're reinforcing it with an event, if you're that way inclined. And the event thing was, in terms of doing something new, and really getting hyper focused on it. Sorry, the event thing's excellent, and events with fundamentally the big event with Thomas that we do every fortnight or month or whatever. That event is a real big accountability, thing as well, because my mission now is to obviously get better on guitar. And as you've heard me talk before, it's a great testing ground for me. So I know whatever I'm doing, I have to be further ahead with my instrument than I was the last one. Okay. And it's a great way to test under pressure, see where you're at, and then create, you find out what all the problems are, have a wonderful time making solutions for them, and then go off and practice again. And then you come back to that live session and you run it again, and you see what worked and what didn't. And you just keep going like that. So that's the habit thing. And obviously there's that great book, Atomic Habits by Mr. Clear, or whoever he's called, which is, I highly recommend that book. And actually that talks about environment, doesn't it? The British Cycle Team, their environment, making sure their sleep environments were much better and more effective. Hygiene environment, removing a screw from a bike to make it lighter. You know, there's all these tricks, and what they the thinking behind that, Atomic Habits, yeah. The thinking behind that, the real takeaway for that book is, you know, you're making a habit, but when you're within that habit, what you're trying to do is you're just trying to make everything that you do 1% better, and we can do that every day. We can make everything 1% better, can't we? You can be watching a stream and give me 1% more attention than you did the last stream. So, habits first. Dial in that studio time and just get going, and don't worry about all the other chaos. Don't overthink, right, I'm really going to make a big go of music if you're thinking about doing this. Don't worry about that. Just make the time, okay? Because really, when we think about the structure of the wins, problems, opportunities, when we're doing these sessions and going in head first, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make music, what that's going to naturally do is create problems that do exist, all right? What we don't want to do, and what I was doing when I was unplugging everything in the studio and rewiring and updating things, I was preparing for problems that I hadn't had, and that's what we want to avoid. We only want to deal with the problems that we're actually going to have and what we're going to experience. And that's how, you know, we build the resources that we're actually using at the time, instead of wasting our time maintaining and updating plugins and stuff like that, and cleaning bits of equipment that we're not using. Yeah. So the environment, okay, the environment is really important as well, but this is something we can look at. The first thing and the most important thing to remember about environment. Hi Mirko, how you doing? Oh, hey. Good morning, you are amazing. Wow, interest point, yes. So the environment, okay. So we want to make sure our environment is serving our purposes here, don't we? And the number one thing that you want to do is just get rid of everything, and I mean everything, that you're not using. Okay? That's it. It's like, take it out of your peripheral vision if you're not using it, because all of these things do put a cognitive load on it. It's something that you're thinking about. It's a distraction. Oh, should I be using this? Should I be doing, you know, if you've got hardware that's helping you with music and you don't really use it, but it's sitting there pretty, just get rid of it, move it. Okay? You don't need it. But it's all there just creating problems for problems that you haven't solved, right? So we don't want any distractions with anything, okay? I have a... So I'm a sucker for this. I have a timeout cupboard and a timeout box, all right? In the timeout box, I have an OP1 and an OPZ, which I bought thinking I'll use these. I've also got in that cupboard, I've got Machine and an SH101 that over the years I've bought, thinking this will be great. And these, it's always been like a hardware sin for something, and I'll plug it in and I'll use it, and I plug it in and I use it, and it gets in the way of my workflow. And it's another thing I've got to switch on. And it's another thing that because I've got it, there's an expectation that I use it now. And that just really starts getting annoying, because then I feel guilty about not knowing it. Then I start thinking of opportunities to use the thing, and that's just not being creatively free. Okay? So if I'm not using it, I just put it in the box, and that is it. So your environment is now clean, and you end up with my environment where, you see, the guitars in the back, got to have those in, because like Kiesler are absolutely amazing, and you know, I'm so lucky to be supported by them. So I've got the beautiful guitars in the back, the orange Kiesel and the blue, which I do play, both of them still, and the blue Hyperdrive, and so they're in the back, all right. So we've got to allow that, because Kiesler are amazing, and I've just, you know, it's a lovely thing to see. I need to polish that red guitar though, don't I? Right, I'll have to give that a clean. I'll do that today. Right. So remove everything. Okay. Now just have the things that you are going to use. So for me, and everything has a purpose. So in front of me, I have a 48 key complete, at the look at it, complete control. Wonderful thing. So that's there. So I've got my keyboard, so I can see chords and I can play keyboards like in the traditional sense. And then because I'm a really bad keyboard player, and despite knowing all my scales on guitar and modes and all that kind of thing, that's not the same on the keyboard, right? So when I'm wanting to quickly do melodies and things like that, I've got like the push. And the good thing about the push, what I mainly use it for, is I can flick it into the scale mode, and then it'll lock to whatever scale I'm in, and then I can knock out my melodies and not worry about hitting bum notes. Yeah, so that's what I do that for. So there's two bits of things. I've got my streaming buttons there, so I can flick about here without getting the mouse and flicking up about. I've got the foot controller for when I'm playing guitar, which goes between that and that, which is really handy. So the reason I have that, again, solving a problem, is when I'm doing like little morning sessions, because I've been playing a lot more guitar prior to doing these talk sessions, is if I'm wanting to do a little bit of guitar for social media and I think, all right, things are going well, I'm doing a solo, my guitar's lined up nicely, I've got a nice shot there of me playing, let's zoom in and get a close-up, and I can easily do that. And then it's almost like doing that video edit whilst being on the live, whilst making my own music. So it's a brilliant, the environment that I'm in now, where I can live stream and create music and create social media content on the fly is like really good. So that's what I'm really keen on developing more in that direction as we go. But these things can take time. But that's what I'm doing. So that's the physical environment. So there's only the keyboard, the push, and then the guitar that I'm using, right, is here. Okay, so I'll pick it up with this hand, and it's right next to me. So the workhorse guitar is there, and it's unfortunately it shouldn't be plugged in because I flattened the batteries, but I left it plugged in from last night. I'll unplug it now. Right, and then I'll replace the battery later. And it's literally, I have it there when I'm thinking, and I can quickly pick it up, plug it in, pedal board's in front of me here, tuner's there, tune up, and I'm ready to go, and I only have to turn around here. And then what I have is, a controller for Ableton, so for when I'm playing guitar, I can, there we go, on Ableton, basically you can see I can navigate about Ableton up, down, left, right, on the session view. And I've got record and undo, so it makes Ableton into a little bit clunky, but it makes it into quite useful, very elaborate looper. But that's something I'm developing. I think that's all. And then I've got a timer. So hardware timer. These are really cheap. I recommend everybody in the world should have one of these. And time yourself, and I can do 5-minute, 10-minute tasks. I can time minimum viable sessions on that. I'll do all sorts of stuff with this. I'll do Pomodoro technique, like, where you work for really like flat out for 25 minutes and you rest for 5 minutes, like doing intervals. So I do all of that, and the timer is essential. I don't like to have my mobile phone timer. I just don't want that in the room with me as like a distraction. So that's why I have that, and obviously you can see I quite like the colour, and it's colour coordinated. See, this is all deliberate. So you've got blue there, and you've got blue knobs. That's the detail we're going into here. So I've got this. This is another alternative where what I use this for is to manually, when I'm sitting here, to drop in and record on the session view. So that's what I use that for in the session. So I can navigate and record basically with that. Up, down, arrows, you can't. Yeah. So, I think that's, so I've got speakers. Speakers I use just when I'm jamming and stuff like that, or want to play in the room, just have like a, just a speaker feel and not have something crushing my head in on my, like headphones. And then we come to the listening environment. So I use VSX headphones, and I use obviously the headphone correction software, the binaural software that gives me different listening environments from when I'm mixing. So the mixing environment, really the virtual world, that's sitting on my head. So acoustically, I know I've got a fairly sound space, and I can get some good results off that. Okay, I just want to catch up on the chat here. Yes, don't fix. Very important. Yeah, don't fix anything that ain't broke. Okay, but do identify things that are potential barriers. I've been shedding all of my tech skin with new Mac. I have so much to speak on. I want to maybe do another chat with you. Of course, yeah, just send me an email and we'll book something in. I'm all in, by the way. Brilliant. I'm going to complete utilitarian ditch most of my hardware. I now have a very similar setup to yours. Excellent. And it's just, you're free. And you can still, I mean, we're humans, we do like to buy things. You can still occasionally get things, bring them in. Like, I've had the Quad Cortex in. I enjoyed playing on that, helped me practice, but just didn't fit in with my workflow. So then we get to the environment, the software environment. Consider that like your physical space as well. Just remember one thing, right? So this is my template that launches up. And it does look overcomplicated, but at the heart of it, it's beats plus 3. And the only reason I've got these extra things in is because it's problems that I've been solving as I go. So initially, when I started this a while ago, a few years ago, the beats plus 3, which I've stuck with. And it's interesting, no matter how much I've like really changed the environment, it always goes back to the very sort of early idea of what I was doing. I always end up with very similar plugins. But anyway, all it is it's just based on drums, bass, mid-range, bleed, and that is it. And that's how you make your music. And that lead, you can count that as your vocal. And that's all you have. And you make music with that. And then you think of it, your environment, not like your DAW, but you just think of it like a band. And for each band member, you can reward them with different upgrades. So if your bass player needs a distortion, you can give them a distortion. Because you've been making some music and you think, wouldn't it be great if the bass had some distortion on the chorus? You don't do it in that session because you're splurging. But what you do is when you do your wins, problems, opportunities, you identify that as a problem. And then the solution is to find a distortion. And that's something you can have fun with. You don't have to race to find a distortion. You could try a few different things out and find out which one, like going into a shop, is the best one for your bass player. And then you add it in. And of course, that's in your template now. And you're going to practice with adding that distortion. So you're going to get good at understanding what that distortion does with regards to that bass. So it's a lot easier to become... to move towards mastery because you're practicing the same thing. If we keep grabbing for different distortions that have like different interfaces, different sounds all the time, we're not mastering anything. That's the problem. So it's just finding what really sounds good to us, not worrying about what the results are for other people. We should always, and this comes down to making music as well. You're making music for yourself, right? Don't worry about the world, okay? You're making music as a metaphor for your own emotion, all right? And 100% the world will like that. The problems happen, though, when you start making music that you think the world wants, all right? That's not what we do. We're making music for ourselves because there's only one version of us with the most unique thing, so it makes sense for it to come from our hearts and our minds, not from what we think other hearts and minds want. That's super important. So, slight digression there. But I thought that would be important to say. So you're always being true to yourself with all of this. Your choices in equipment for your environment, and your music and making it. So, but fundamentally, yes, this is like beats plus 3. And I'm only really gearing up for the first sort of bit of the creative flow, really. What I'm doing is I am running an experiment, which I'm very happy with at the minute, which is I'm using SSL 4KE, and that's just planted on every channel. And that's just so, I do like the sound of it. I do want things to sound better on the stream. So it's kind of like, I want to see how good I can get things to sound, but also have the flexibility in using sounds. So that's why I use like the Drum Machine XO, because I can see all of my one-shot library in one go, very quick to pick sounds. I've got everything sort of set, anything to do with mixing set in a really neutral way. So there's not a lot really going on. I think the drums have a tiny bit of compression. There's some roll-offs on things where I think it may need it. But other than that, it's very generic, and you know, you can put any sort of drums through those settings and they'll sound okay. It's just to get a vibe. But what I did notice on the song, because I'm doing more guitar stuff, which has really put me on the SSL thing, what I was doing at the end of the session, it was zero latency. That were repetitive tasks that I could actually transplant and put into the beginning of the process. I did anyway, just so things, you know, sound better in terms of not really. The thing that I look for is like just keeping separation between sounds. That's all I'm looking for. That very, you know, I'm not trying to enhance everything, but I just want to be able to clearly hear the idea that I'm working on, but not trying to like do an end mix at the beginning. The mindset of making music for myself is very hard to do in the beginning. I feel like once you're able to generally feel that way, you've accomplished something huge as an artist. Yes. So, and I think honestly, when you're saying that, reading between the lines, it's very hard to do in the beginning. If something's very, very hard to do in the beginning, there are a couple of things maybe going on there, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. One may be that there isn't a regular habit dialed in at the minute that you're not doing, or you may be trying to, and you get to so many days of doing the habit and then fall off, and then there's a break, and then you're kind of back to that. So there could be a habit thing going on. The other thing that may be going on there is I'm making music myself. It's very hard to do at the beginning. Is that there may be some sort of quality result focus. So this is a really important thing, and it's really, and we all do this. So if if you're feeling that you're focusing in on the end result, as you know, I am making music for myself, my music has to sound like X, then that can be also a hindrance, because now what we're doing is whenever we're making music, we're trying to compare what actually exists with this fantasy result that we have in our heads. So that causes problems, because if you're result focused, you're never in the moment of making your own music. That's like the problem, the issues that you have there. Once you're able to genuinely feel that way, I'm not sure if I had that feeling. I just turn up. You know, that is it. And just like any other human being, Sean, like I too fall off and struggle. So that's really important to understand. But the reason I'm here, you know, isn't all to do with the habit. It's because I've held myself accountable to you guys to turn up and just talk about the things that I think are important. And also with that, I'm also practicing talking and presenting a bit more. So I think, you know, after a month of doing this, things are going to be, you know, I'm going to be a bit more entertaining, a bit more lively, a bit more sharper, quicker off the mark, just rolling with the punches, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm, you know, doing this. And then, sorry, I keep flicking this up. That way you've accomplished something huge as an artist. And honestly, I think it just comes down to 5 minutes. Minimum viable commitment, if you can do that. Not having expectations, not having results focus, because we just don't. The problem is, and this is what I say to everybody, right? Just don't. You have to, and this is 100% important, right? One thing you've got to do is you have to embrace uncertainty as a musician and a producer, because That's what it comes down to. It's how you deal with that uncertainty. Music is such a wild beast, right? And it's as I said, the older I'm getting, the more spiritual the experience is becoming as well. And this thing is much bigger than I am, and I can't possibly predict what is going to happen. And like now, because it is so unpredictable, because there is uncertainty there, it makes it exciting. Would I be doing music if I was certain about every time I turned up and like whatever I wanted to do just happened? I wouldn't. I'd be looking for something else to do. I'd be bored. So this is the important thing. So we don't think of into the future when we're sitting in this studio and you're doing, okay, there is no future, there's the now. When you're out of the studio and you're reviewing your music, then you can think into the future. Okay, you can access Self One and the editor can help you plan your next session. But as soon as your session's planned and you take that roadmap in, and you're doing the things that you've wrote down on your lists to try out in the music that you're working on, the editor can't come into that room. It has to be back into Self 2 performance mode. Okay? So no expectations, no result focus, just in the now. And what you find is it just creates incredible amounts of momentum. How would you deal with thinking something I wrote was great, but only my wife likes it? It's too personal. Like it's too personal. Well, I think at the end of the day, what you'll find is whatever you write, Gramps, right, there'll be a world out there that likes it. So it depends on how personal it is. Like if it mentions names, right, then, maybe take the names out. But one thing's for sure is whatever our situation is that we've been writing about, other people in the world will identify that with that, and they will get a lot of like comfort and hope from music, about certain situations and identification with that. So, I mean, how many people have heard this song, apart from the wife? There's what about all the wives in the world? In fact, women, according to ASCAP, is it Philip Murphy, who's the president of ASCAP, females buy, they listen and purchase the most music. So maybe that's your target audience right there, Gramps. Sean, oh yes, I was referring to the whole mindset of making music that I like instead of making music that I feel others like. Kind of like what Rube wrote. Absolutely. Yeah. We are on the brink of a new music revolution. Hopefully we can make it through. Now, Enzo, are you talking about AI? Or getting onto AI again? Because I'm ready for the revolution. I'm there. So there we go. Perfectly put by Des. I write music for me and me only. If others like it, great. Absolutely. And people appreciate that a lot more because it's honest music that has more resonation in the world. He's right. Enzo's ready. Good. So, yeah. So I'm ready. I'm full. Like, look, at the end of the day, anybody who's worried about AI, the question to answer is what's going to be left. All right, and whatever you think's going to be left now, just make sure you focus on those skills. So this is why I'm even more into playing guitar, because people are going to want to see another human being doing something great. People are always going to buy guitars, aren't they? People are always going to want to do that. It's just such a wonderful thing to do as a human being. So I can relate to all of those human beings. There'll be enough in the world for me to do that. This live stream is absolutely dynamic, isn't it? Again, you're dealing, with me on a one-to-one basis here. You can ask me questions and I'll react in my own unique little way. So AI could nick those ideas, but could it predict really what I'm going to do in the future? Of course it can't. And that's what makes humans so exciting. So you just got to be careful. I mean, if you're a bit of a craftist and design, okay, then AI is going to replace you. All right. If you're thinking like an artist, which is what we should be, and you're happy to express yourself in any means that you can, and you've got that flexibility, you're going to be all right. And I think that's really exciting times, It is a revolution. I think we had a little bit of a revolution with the tragic events of COVID. There were certainly two camps of thinking in the music world, I found. And one was, right, okay, when this pandemic is over, I'm going to do X, right? And I didn't find that very helpful. So luckily, I was still coaching and getting my coach training. And so the whole COVID thing was addressed with us coaches and like what we're going to do and how we're going to help people and all this sort of stuff. So, and then there was also the work that I do in the health service here in the NHS. So it was like, how am I going to support people with music through a pandemic, because we can't sing, we can't do this. There's stuff that you have to do, those whole protocols and stuff. And so some musicians were like, right, I'm going to stop what I'm doing, right? And after this is over, then we'll relaunch again, and that'll be fine. But so it was like they were still hanging on to the same world, but the world had changed, and then it was that waiting thing. And that's not a good situation to be in. So that's the extreme. The other way was how I thought about it is I just thought, right, this isn't going to change. This is how life's going to be. Potentially I need to get used to like wearing a mask, not doing certain things, having to do other things. And that's going to be and what I have to do is I have to work out how, as an artist and a professional, I'm going to grow amongst all of this. And I was immediately all the time brainstorming and thinking about the situation, wins, problems, opportunities, all of the time to get through it. And that's how I kind of worked with it. And it served me very, very well. I actually experienced a period of growth. McRockland and Hutch, if we have a look at that absolutely put the sword in the stone for, right, you know what, as a modern artist, everything's going to be done, live streaming. It's a great way, and it served me well, and I prefer this than actually turning up to a real venue at the minute, because I can have regular contact. I can go into performance mode, but likely I can show you things, and I can make my own music all live, and it's a brilliant, wonderful new thing that's happened. And it was really, the pandemic started that way of thinking. So there were like some positives out of that, although obviously there was a lot of people died tragically and a lot of hardship caused by it. Again, with the health service and the hospitals, I was there on the front line. I was every day I was having to go on to a ward with my guitar and studio music making equipment, and couldn't sing, but doing what I could day in and day out, and it was like, it wasn't easy, but you got used to it. Which is another amazing thing I found with humans is it's amazing how we can just get used to the most extremist of situations and deal with it, and then it just becomes part of life, So I think that's bringing me up to a close. So that's been a really good little chat about habits of environment. I hope that's been really helpful for everybody. And as always, I really do appreciate everybody turning up to these and listening to me talk about all of this stuff. I'm trying to cover as much of it as I can that I remember. Hi, Michael. I'm doing great. And so, McRocken and Hutch blew me away when I heard it, when I spoke on a chat video, and you told me what you went through. I gained another level of respect for you. Thank you. These have been great, Tim. Excellent, Sean. And of course, they're here. We have this this session labelled quite clearly Environment and Habits. But actually, when we think about it, I put environment. It should be habits and environment. All right, thank you, Gramps, and thank you, everybody. So, just finally, the last thing to say is that tomorrow, which is Friday, and this is a good place to sort of end the kind of talky week on. It's on Friday. We're going to be talking about one of my favourite areas, and that is decisions. So it will be decisions tomorrow. And we're going to have a nice little discussion about that. All right. See you tomorrow. All right. 6:15. That's the time. UK. Early morning. Yes, get familiar with the tools. Practice. That's what it is. Minimum viable commitment. But if you get a chance, watch the video back, Michael, because I've been talking about habits and environments, and there'll be a lot for you to take away with that. All right, then. See you. Bye.